Now, let's talk about the last thing in this session, which is the exception handling. What is first of all the exceptions? The exceptions is any error or any something wrong or any something not expected happened in your code. Like if you want, for example, to copy a file from path into another path. What if the file is not exists? What the compiler will do? At that time, there will be an exception. This is the meaning of the exception, that something wrong or something not expected happened. How I can notify myself as a programmer or notify the system, or how I can catch this exception and do something with this exception. We have the try and catch block. Using the try and catch block, I can make sure that if something wrong happened, I can know about it. How this works. So if I need to write my code here, the compiler will come first to the try and will execute this code. If this code executed successfully, then the compiler will not come to this part, which is the catch. But if something wrong happened here, the compiler will directly come to the catch part, and in the catch part, inside the parentheses, you can optionally define the exception here. This exception is built in a class in C#. You can use it as it is, and this is just a name for the exception. You can give it any name you want, like EX, exception name, what happening, any name you want to use. So now let's say that I'm copying a file. Here I'm doing the process of copying a file from one path to another path, but the file actually not exists. So when the compiler throw an exception that the file is not exists, the compiler will come here and then will execute this part of code. This part can be like notifying, for example, the administrator that there is a missing file, or you can save the log into the database that okay, the file is not exists, and so on. And this variable ex, which is the exception, contains the all information you need to know about this exception. What type of exception, what the message, what the stack, what everything you need to know about the exception. So this is how the try and catch works. And you can optionally add this finally clause or this finally block into your try catch state. The finally will be executed always by the compiler. If there is an exception or if there is no exception, this finally statement will be executed. So the code here inside these brackets will be executed always. Why do we need finally? Because sometimes you are, for example, caching a data into the memory. And after finishing this process, you need to release your memory. You need to free up the memory. So you need to remove the cache in order to keep, for example, the performance good in the application. This is just an example, and you can do whatever you want here. You can save a login to the database, you can do whatever you want in the finally, but you need to know that finally will be executed always if there is an exception or there is no exception. Let's go now back to the Visual Studio to understand the try and catch.